There's a particular kind of silence that settles over a house when you realize everything you thought was solid is actually built on lies. And for me, that silence arrived on a crisp November afternoon in Seattle, when I came home early from my book club because of a migraine and found my younger sister's car parked in our driveway, which wouldn't have been unusual except that she told me that morning she had an important client meeting in Tacoma and wouldn't be able to meet for our usual Tuesday coffee. I stood there on our front porch, keys in hand, watching the autumn leaves drift across the lawn while my mind tried to process why my sister would lie about where she was, why she would be at my house in the middle of a workday, and why every instinct in my body was suddenly screaming at me not to go inside. But I did go inside, moving quietly through my own home like a stranger, and what I heard coming from upstairs, from my bedroom, from my marriage bed, was laughter I recognized, intimate sounds that should have been impossible, and my husband's voice saying my sister's name in a way that made it clear this wasn't the first time, wasn't a mistake, wasn't anything except a betrayal so profound that in that moment I felt something inside me die and something else, something cold and calculating, immediately take its place. Before we continue, please subscribe to this channel and leave a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Your support truly means the world. My name is Patricia, though everyone calls me Trish. I'm 68 years old now, living comfortably in a waterfront condo in downtown Seattle, far from the large house in Bellevue where this story took place. I was born in 1956 in Portland, Oregon, the eldest of 3 sisters in a middle-class family where my father worked as an accountant and my mother was an elementary school teacher. We were raised with strong values about family loyalty, about how sisters should protect each other, about how blood was thicker than water. Those values shaped every decision I made until the day I discovered they meant nothing to the 2 people I trusted most. I met Robert when I was 25, working as a legal secretary at a downtown Seattle law firm. He was an associate attorney, ambitious and charming, with sandy blonde hair and blue eyes that crinkled when he smiled. We dated for 2 years before getting married in 1983. We built what I thought was a good life together. Robert made partner at his firm, we bought a beautiful house in Bellevue, had our daughter Emily, and from the outside we looked like the perfect successful couple. My sister Nicole was 4 years younger than me. Growing up, we'd been close, sharing secrets and covering for each other. She was the pretty one, the fun one, while I was the responsible one. Nicole had drifted through various jobs after college, never quite finding her path, always struggling with money. I'd helped her countless times, lending her money, letting her stay with us, trying to get her life on track. When Nicole turned 35 and was still unmarried and struggling, I convinced Robert to hire her as his personal assistant. She needed stability, and Robert needed someone organized and trustworthy. It seemed perfect. Nicole was grateful, saying I'd saved her life. She worked for Robert for 8 years, and during that time she became part of our family, joining us for dinners several times a week, spending holidays with us, becoming close to Emily. I thought it was wonderful. My other sister Karen lived in San Francisco, so having Nicole nearby felt like having that sister connection I valued. When Robert praised Nicole's work, I felt proud that I'd helped her. When Emily talked about how cool Aunt Nicole was, I was happy they were close. I trusted them both completely. Looking back, the signs were everywhere. The way Nicole looked too polished on days she knew Robert would be in the office. How she'd light up when he entered a room. The inside jokes they shared. The expensive perfume she suddenly could afford. But I never suspected. The idea that they could betray me was impossible to imagine. The affair had been going on for 3 years before I discovered it that November afternoon. 3 years of lies in my own home, probably in my own bed. 3 years of family dinners where they sat across from each other acting normal. 3 years of Nicole hugging me and telling me how lucky she was to have me as a sister while sleeping with my husband. When I heard them upstairs that day, my first instinct was to storm up and catch them. But something stopped me. A cold, clear voice in my head told me to be smart. To think strategically. To leave quietly and gather evidence. So I backed out of my house, got in my car, and sat shaking in a coffee shop for an hour, processing what I knew. That evening when I came home at my usual time, Nicole's car was gone and Robert was in his study like nothing had happened. He smiled, asked how book club was. I smiled back and lied just as easily as he'd been lying to me. That night, lying awake beside him, I realized I didn't want just a divorce. That would be too easy. They deserved to lose everything. And I was going to make it happen by being patient and methodical. I hired a private investigator the next day. Within 2 weeks, Linda Chun had provided detailed documentation of their affair. Photos of them entering hotels. Videos of them kissing in parking garages. Records of an apartment Robert had rented downtown where they met regularly. But she discovered something more interesting. Robert had been moving money around, transferring significant amounts from our joint accounts into hidden accounts. He was preparing to leave me and trying to hide assets. This changed everything. It wasn't just an affair, it was financial fraud. And I was documenting every transaction, building a case that would destroy him. I also discovered Nicole had been promoted and was making nearly twice what assistants typically earned. Robert had justified this to his partners as rewarding performance, but I knew he was funneling money to her. This wasn't just betrayal, it was a systematic plan they'd been executing together. Over the next months, I consulted with a divorce attorney, Diane Morrison, paying cash and meeting where I wouldn't be recognized. She was impressed by my evidence and told me I had an extremely strong case. But she advised patience, told me to keep gathering evidence, to wait for the right moment. I followed her advice. I played the devoted wife and loving sister. I invited Nicole for dinner, attended work functions with Robert, smiled and made small talk. All while documenting everything, recording conversations, keeping detailed logs of their meetings. I installed monitoring software on Robert's devices, read their messages and emails, knew their schedule better than they did. 6 months in, I noticed their relationship showing strain. Nicole was becoming demanding, wanting Robert to leave me and go public. Robert was hesitating, making excuses. Their texts showed increasing tension. This gave me an idea. Instead of confronting them, I would let them destroy themselves. I would create pressure that would expose their cracks and make them implode. My first move was becoming the perfect wife again. I lost weight, updated my wardrobe, initiated romance more often, planned date nights. I wasn't trying to win him back, I was making Nicole insecure and jealous. It worked beautifully. Her messages became increasingly anxious, accusing Robert of choosing me over her. Robert tried reassuring her while enjoying attention from both of us. His ego inflated, making him careless. My second move was befriending Nicole's direct supervisor at the firm, senior partner Gregory Walsh. During casual coffee meetings about a charity project, I'd mention how grateful Nicole was for Robert's generosity with her bonuses and raises. Gregory started questioning the compensation discrepancies, asking Robert why his assistant was paid so much more than others. Robert couldn't explain without revealing the affair, so he became defensive. This created tension with the other partners. Meanwhile, I planted seeds with my family. I'd tell my mother and sister Karen that Robert seemed stressed, that he worked such long hours. I'd express concern about Nicole, saying she seemed different, more secretive. I was building a narrative so when the truth came out, everyone would say they'd seen signs. I also documented my own health meticulously. Regular doctor visits, therapy sessions. I was creating proof that I was competent, stable, trying to work on our marriage while Robert betrayed me. I knew he might try to paint me as unstable to explain the marriage problems. Around 8 months after discovery, I befriended Nicole's landlord and learned she was chronically late with rent despite her generous salary. Through my investigator, I discovered why. Nicole had a serious gambling problem, spending thousands at the nearby tribal casino, racking up credit card debt. Robert didn't know. He thought he was helping her save for their future. This was gold. I now had evidence of the affair, Robert's financial fraud, and Nicole's gambling addiction and deceptive behavior. Both were hiding things from each other while hiding from me. My daughter Emily was 21, in her senior year at University of Washington, planning law school like her father. She adored Robert and Nicole. I dreaded telling her, but knew I had to protect her from the fallout. I started having more mother-daughter time, strengthening our bond without revealing anything, preparing her emotionally for the shock coming. Around the 1-year anniversary of my discovery, Robert's firm announced a merger with another firm. The restructuring created stress for Robert, affecting his time with Nicole. He had less availability for their secret meetings, was more distracted. Nicole didn't handle this well. Her messages became desperate and erratic. She threatened to tell me about the affair if Robert didn't leave me soon. Robert panicked, trying to calm her down. Their relationship was cracking under pressure, and I hadn't even confronted them yet. This was when I decided to execute the next phase. I needed them to turn on each other, to collapse under their own weight. And I found the perfect opportunity through Robert's upcoming 60th birthday. Robert was turning 60, and I suggested throwing him a big surprise party. He resisted initially, but I insisted, saying we needed to celebrate 27 years of marriage properly. He finally agreed, probably feeling guilty, probably thinking refusal would look suspicious. I spent 2 months planning an elaborate party at a fancy hotel venue, inviting everyone who mattered. His law partners and spouses, our friends, my extended family including my mother and sister Karen flying in from San Francisco, Emily's godparents, our neighbors. And of course Nicole, who couldn't refuse without raising questions. What they didn't know was this party wasn't a celebration. It was a trap. The venue had excellent audiovisual capabilities, which I'd need for my presentation. I'd hired a tech-savvy assistant to help set everything up. I also scheduled it for a Friday evening, which I knew from monitoring their communications was when they usually met at their downtown apartment. I was forcing them into the same room when they'd rather be together elsewhere. In the weeks before, I continued gathering evidence. More photos, more financial records, more documentation of lies. I had everything organized chronologically, ready to present undeniably and devastatingly. I also quietly moved significant assets into accounts in my name only. Robert had been hiding money, but I'd been doing the same more effectively. By party time, I had half our liquid assets under my sole control. The week before, Nicole tried backing out, claiming a work conflict. I insisted she come, saying Robert would be disappointed. She finally agreed, unable to refuse without suspicion. Through their messages, I watched her complain to Robert about pretending all evening, about hating lying to me. The irony was delicious. If you're still with me, thank you. Please subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments, it really helps. The night arrived. The venue looked beautiful, decorated with photos of Robert throughout his life and career. I'd ensured plenty of photos with Emily and me, showing our family history, the visual narrative of everything he was destroying. Guests arrived, drinking champagne, eating appetizers. Robert worked the room, the successful attorney celebrating a milestone. Nicole arrived late, stunning in a designer dress she couldn't really afford. My mother and Karen were there, complimenting me on how well I looked. At 8 o'clock, I asked everyone to gather for a toast and special presentation. People settled in with champagne, expecting a sentimental tribute. Emily sat front row, beaming. Nicole sat near the back, clearly uncomfortable. Robert stood beside me, smiling, unsuspecting. I began talking about marriage, about trust, about building a life over nearly 3 decades. People nodded appreciatively. Then I said loving someone means knowing them completely, understanding all their secrets. Robert's smile flickered. I announced a special video presentation showcasing Robert's life and career. The lights dimmed. But instead of family photos, text messages appeared. Hundreds of messages between Robert and Nicole, starting 3 years ago, showing their affair's progression in their own words. The room went silent as message after message scrolled across the screen. Intimate messages, explicit messages, discussions about me, plans for their future. Every damning piece of evidence, chronologically ordered with timestamps. Robert tried turning off the presentation but couldn't access the controls. Nicole attempted leaving but found doors blocked by friends I'd briefed. They were trapped, forced to watch their 3-year affair exposed to everyone who mattered. Then came the photos. Images from my private investigator of them together, kissing, holding hands, entering hotels. Photos leaving no doubt. The audience gasped, some cried, many looked away in disgust. But I wasn't finished. Next came financial records. Documentation showing Robert moving marital assets into hidden accounts, trying to defraud me. Records showing Nicole's inflated salary and inappropriate money flow from Robert to her. And finally, Evidence of Nicole's gambling addiction and thousands lost at the casino, money Robert didn't even know about. My mother stood and left, visibly devastated. Karen looked at Nicole with pure hatred. Robert's law partners whispered among themselves, calculating professional implications. Emily sat frozen, tears streaming, processing what her father and aunt had done. I ended by announcing I'd filed for divorce that morning, seeking everything because of adultery and financial fraud. I stated Nicole was fired immediately and would never work at the firm again. I revealed I'd contacted the Washington State Bar Association about Robert's unethical conduct. Then I walked out, leaving them to face the horrified crowd. I'd said everything needed. The evidence spoke for itself. I didn't need to argue or justify. Their own actions condemned them. Emily found me outside, collapsed into my arms sobbing. She said she was sorry, had never suspected, couldn't believe Dad and Aunt Nicole would do this. I held my daughter and told her none of this was her fault, that her father's choices didn't reflect on her, that I loved her and would always be here. Having my daughter's support validated everything I'd done. My mother and Karen came out shortly after. My mother cried, saying she was ashamed of Nicole, couldn't believe one daughter would do this to another. Karen hugged me and said she'd cut Nicole from her life completely, that what she'd done was unforgivable. Having my family's immediate support was crucial, exactly why I'd exposed everything publicly rather than privately. The aftermath was swift and brutal, and I didn't have to do anything more. Their downfall happened naturally, exactly as planned. Robert's law partners held an emergency meeting the following week. The party video had been recorded by multiple guests and spread quickly. Robert's reputation was destroyed. His partners offered resignation or forced removal. He resigned, losing partnership shares and future earnings. The Bar Association opened an investigation. While not disbarred, he received public censure that essentially ended his career. No reputable firm would hire him. Nicole lost her job the day after, of course. But more than that, she lost everything else. The story spread through Seattle's legal community and beyond. No law firm would touch her. She couldn't get references from Robert without revealing the affair. She had massive gambling debts, no income, and was evicted within a month. But the most satisfying part was what happened to their relationship. Once everything was public, once they could theoretically be together openly, they fell apart immediately. Without secrecy and excitement, without me as the obstacle, they had nothing. They turned on each other viciously. Nicole blamed Robert for not protecting her job, for not being honest about finances, for ruining her life. Robert blamed Nicole for being too demanding, for her gambling addiction he hadn't known about, for threatening to expose the affair, which accelerated their downfall. They saw each other clearly for the first time, without fantasy, and hated what they saw. According to mutual acquaintances, they had a massive fight in a restaurant where Nicole threw a drink in Robert's face, screaming he'd destroyed her life. Robert told her she'd been nothing but a mistake, that he'd never loved her, that she'd seduced him when he was vulnerable. Police were called. They never spoke again after that night. Nicole moved back to Portland to live with our elderly mother, the ultimate humiliation for a 47-year-old woman. Our mother told me she made Nicole's life miserable, constantly bringing up the betrayal, making her feel guilty daily. Nicole fell into depression, gained weight, lost confidence. Last I heard, she was working retail, living a tiny, diminished life. Robert fared slightly better, but not much. He got a job at a small firm doing routine contract work for a fraction of his former salary. He moved into a modest apartment. The Bellevue house sold in our divorce settlement, where I got 70% of everything thanks to evidence of his fraud and fault. Emily barely spoke to him, seeing him only on major holidays out of obligation. The divorce took 6 months. Robert initially tried fighting, but Diane Morrison destroyed him with my evidence. He settled for far less than normal divorce entitlement because the alternative was a trial, making everything even more public. He couldn't risk that. I received the house proceeds, most investments, a significant portion of his retirement, and monthly alimony. Robert was left with enough to live on, but nothing like the wealth and comfort he'd expected for retirement. The money he'd tried hiding was discovered and returned to the marital estate. Every penny given Nicole over the years was calculated, and he had to pay me back half. But money was never really the point. The revenge was watching them destroy each other and their own lives without me doing anything but reveal the truth. They'd created this situation with lies and betrayals. I just turned on the lights and let everyone see what they'd been doing in darkness. People sometimes ask if I regret handling it so publicly, so dramatically. They suggest I should have been more dignified, handled things privately. These are usually people who've never experienced this particular betrayal by the two people who should have been most loyal. I have absolutely no regrets. Every step was carefully calculated and perfectly executed. They took a year of my life in lies and humiliation. I took 1 year to plan their destruction so thoroughly they're still living with consequences 5 years later. My life today, at 68, is peaceful and fulfilling in ways it never was during my marriage. I live in a beautiful waterfront condo with views of Elliott Bay, watching ferries and cruise ships from my living room. I travel when I want, have close friends, volunteer with organizations helping women through difficult divorces. I've turned my pain into purpose. Emily graduated from law school and is now a successful family law attorney. She says she saw firsthand how important good legal representation is during difficult family situations. She's engaged to a wonderful man who treats her with respect and honesty. We're planning her wedding together. She's asked her father to walk her down the aisle, but that I'm the only parent giving a reception speech. My relationship with my mother improved after everything came out. She felt guilty raising one daughter who could betray another so completely. She apologized repeatedly, though I told her Nicole's actions weren't her fault. My mother passed 2 years ago, and at the funeral, Nicole tried approaching me. I walked away without a word. I had nothing to say to her then and nothing now. Karen and I are closer than ever. She flies up from San Francisco every few months, and we take trips together. Karen told me she'd warned Nicole years ago that she was getting too close to Robert, that people were noticing, but Nicole had laughed it off. Karen feels guilty she didn't push harder or tell me, but I don't blame her. Nicole was skilled at deception. I've maintained friendships with people who were at that birthday party. They tell me it was the most dramatic thing they'd ever witnessed, that they'd never forget it. Some said I was brave. Others said I was vindictive. I don't care what they think. I did what I needed for my own justice and closure. Robert tried contacting me several times over the years. Emails apologizing, asking if we could talk, saying he regretted everything. I never responded. There's nothing he could say that would matter. He made his choices, now he lives with consequences. Emily tells me he's aged badly, looks much older than 65, seems lonely and defeated. I feel nothing when I hear this. No satisfaction, no pity, just indifference. Nicole sent me a long handwritten letter 2 years ago trying to explain herself. She said she'd been vulnerable and Robert took advantage of his position as her boss. She said she'd always felt inferior to me and the affair made her feel special. She said she was profoundly sorry and hoped I could someday forgive her. I burned the letter without finishing it. Her excuses don't matter. Thank you for following my story to the end. If this resonated with you, please subscribe, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support means everything. The most satisfying part wasn't the public humiliation or financial victory or even watching their relationship implode. It was the long-term consequences I set in motion but didn't have to maintain. I destroyed their lives without ongoing effort. I just revealed truth and let natural consequences take over. Robert lost his career, reputation, family, wealth. But I didn't have to actively maintain his punishment. His own choices and professional and social consequences did that. He can't rebuild because everyone knows what he did. Every time he applies for a job or meets someone new, his past follows him. Nicole lost her career, relationships, self-respect. Again, I didn't have to do anything to maintain that. The family she betrayed wants nothing to do with her. The professional community blacklisted her. Her gambling addiction I exposed marked her as unreliable. She destroyed herself, I just made sure everyone knew. And they destroyed each other. That might be the most elegant part. Once I removed myself from the equation, once they were free to be together, They turned on each other with all the venom they'd once directed toward deceiving me. They blamed each other for their downfall. They exposed each other's flaws and lies. They hurt each other far more than I ever could have. I often think about what would have happened if I'd confronted them immediately when I first discovered the affair. If I'd screamed and cried and demanded explanations. They would have apologized, made excuses, maybe ended it temporarily. Robert would have offered counseling. Nicole would have moved away and we'd eventually reconcile because family pressure would demand it. They'd have gotten away with a 3-year affair with minor consequences. But by waiting, by being patient and strategic, by documenting everything and choosing the perfect moment to reveal it all, I ensured maximum damage. I made sure everyone knew exactly what they'd done. I made sure their betrayal cost them everything that mattered. And I made sure they couldn't blame me for being irrational because I let their own actions speak for themselves. People ask if I think I went too far, if punishment exceeded the crime. I always ask them to imagine their spouse of nearly 3 decades and their sister carrying on an affair for 3 years while looking them in the eye and pretending to love them. I ask them to imagine discovering it wasn't just sex but a whole relationship with plans for a future that involved discarding you. Then I ask if public exposure and natural consequences are too harsh. No one has ever said yes after thinking about it that way. I've been asked if I would ever consider forgiving them, especially now that time has passed. The answer is no. Forgiveness isn't something I owe them. They don't deserve it, haven't earned it, and I don't need to give it to move on. I've moved on perfectly well while maintaining my anger. Those two things aren't mutually exclusive. Some worry that holding on to anger is unhealthy, that I should let go for peace of mind. But my anger isn't consuming me. It's not preventing happiness or building a good life. It's just a fact of my existence, like my eye color or height. I'm angry at what they did, and I probably always will be, and I'm completely fine with that. I've also been accused of being unfair to Emily, putting her in a difficult position with her father. But Emily is an adult who made her own choices about her relationship with Robert. I never demanded she cut him off or choose sides. I told her the truth and let her decide. She chose minimal contact with her father because of what he did, not because of anything I said. The lesson I want people to take from my story isn't about revenge specifically, though that was satisfying. The lesson is about patience, strategy, and letting people destroy themselves with their own actions. I didn't have to lie or manipulate or do anything underhanded. I just had to wait, gather evidence, and reveal truth at the right moment in the right way. Too many people, when they discover infidelity, react immediately out of pain and anger. They confront, fight, make demands. Often the cheating spouse talks their way out, minimizes it, promises it won't happen again. The betrayed spouse forgives or tries working through it. And frequently, the affair just goes underground and continues. By waiting, by being strategic, I ensured that didn't happen. I made sure the affair couldn't survive once exposed. I made sure Robert and Nicole couldn't minimize or explain away 3 years of systematic betrayal. And I made sure their lives were permanently altered by their choices. I'm proud of how I handled it. I'm proud I didn't fall apart or become a victim. I'm proud I turned pain into power and used it to protect myself and ensure justice. I'm proud I showed Emily that women don't have to accept betrayal quietly, that we can fight back intelligently and effectively. 5 years later, I can look back at that terrible November afternoon and see it as the beginning of my real life, not the end. It was the day I stopped being the naive wife and sister, stopped trusting too easily and believing too readily. It was the day I became someone stronger, smarter, more strategic. Robert is 65 now, working a job he hates, living in a tiny apartment, seeing his daughter a few times a year. Nicole is 52, living with roommates in Portland, working retail, probably still struggling with gambling. And I'm 68, financially secure, emotionally healthy, living my best life in a beautiful condo, with strong relationships and a clear conscience. I destroyed their lives without lifting a finger because I didn't have to. I just had to reveal who they really were and let the world respond accordingly. The truth was my weapon, and it was more devastating than anything else I could have done. To anyone reading this who's been betrayed by people they trusted, I want you to know you have more power than you think. You don't have to accept betrayal quietly. You don't have to forgive and forget. You don't have to protect people who hurt you. You can choose to fight back, strategically and effectively, and you can win. But most importantly, you can build a life after betrayal that's better than anything you had before. You can find happiness and peace and satisfaction. You can surround yourself with people who actually love and respect you. You can look back at people who betrayed you and feel nothing but indifference because they're no longer part of your life. That's the ultimate revenge. Not just destroying them, but thriving without them. Living so well that they become irrelevant to your happiness. Moving forward so completely that they're left behind in your past, insignificant and forgotten. I'm Patricia. I'm 68 years old. My husband cheated with my sister for 3 years. And I destroyed both their lives by simply revealing the truth and letting natural consequences take over. I have no regrets. I would do it all again exactly the same way. And I've never been happier. If you made it to the end, thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening. Please subscribe, like, and let me know in the comments what you think about revenge, forgiveness, and family betrayal. Your engagement and support mean the world to me.